Someone asked me a question here what I thought was going to be the effect of this morning. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced that he was going to enact a big fiscal stimulus in the fall, and the government was going to hold off on a planned sales tax increase. Now, before I get into the effect of that, and I'm really actually glad this question was asked because it reminded me that I needed to talk about something with respect to the foreign exchange markets. The foreign exchange markets are probably the most misunderstood markets of all the markets, at least in terms of the effects of policy on exchange rates. Okay, we see all the time market reaction in the opposite direction of the true effect of exchange rates. Now, the fact that these markets are so misunderstood means that there's tremendous money making potential in these markets because you have the vast majority of people who really don't understand the effect of policy on exchange rates. But by the same token, it makes them sometimes very hard to trade because you have to factor in that lack of understanding into the behavior of traders and investors and how that could move things in a direction opposite the true fundamentals. You see what I'm saying? And it's coming from a guy, me, who's been trading foreign exchange for a long time, and I teach it. Okay, but even myself, if some of you are finding that you seem to understand it, and you probably do understand it, but you seem to be getting in early, and you see that even I many times get into positions early because I allow my MMT, my knowledge base of the effect of policy to get in front of what is almost always going to be the wrong reaction on the part of the trade of people out there. Okay, so you really have to take that into account. So, getting back to the question of what will be the effect of this announced fiscal stimulus, it's interesting and it's kind of a multi layered answer. First of all, the fiscal stimulus, and we don't really know the size of it. He just said it's going to be a massive one. It's not going to happen until the fall. Okay. Now, this morning, however, when it was announced that there was going to be a fiscal stimulus, they bought the yen, even though nothing was changing. They bought the yen, but they bought the yen on the idea that a fiscal stimulus is bullish for the yen, when in fact a fiscal stimulus means government spending. In the case of Japan, government deficit spending. That's bearish for the yen. Okay? It's inflationary, it's net yen creation. That's yen printing, the same thing all these crazy yen bears were saying for so long, which wasn't really yen printing at all when they were talking about, the monetary policy actions of the Bank of Japan. So it didn't happen yet, but they bought the yen. But even if it did happen and they bought the yen, that would be the wrong thing to do. But you have to factor in that wrong behavior first and how far that could carry. And that, for me, has sometimes been a difficult thing. I'll be honest with you. You see, I get into these currency positions early. You talk about other things that I trade, S&Ps or whatever. I'm usually pretty good on that. Now, the holding off on the rate hike, a rate hike would have been bearish for the yen, right? Because, I'm sorry, it would have been bullish for the yen, right? A rate hike, it's deflationary, would have been bullish for the yen. The investors, the trade might have perceived that as bearish because they would think, oh, that's negative for the economy, right? I mean, you could have a weak economy and a very strong currency. I mean, we saw that in the Baltic states when they were in their accession to the EU, when they were becoming members of the Eurozone. They had to enact brutal austerity right, to bring their budgets in line with the dictates of what the EU required. And that collapsed their economies by 30, 40%. But their currencies became very, very strong. All right? So you can't just necessarily say, oh, the economy is weak, I'm going to sell the currency. So there's all kinds of convoluted thinking in here. The thing to remember is that this fiscal stimulus is not happening until what? The fall. He didn't give a date. They bought the yen like crazy today, which is probably the wrong thing to do. So you probably have to sell it on this rally. You know, dollar yen went down. You probably have to buy that, or whatever pair you're trading against the yen, whatever other currency you're trading against the yen. So that's the thing here. I hope I didn't confuse you more, but there's a tremendous amount. That's because there's a tremendous amount of confusion when it comes to Forex and the level of understanding by people. It's almost, I have never seen a market where almost universally the understanding or the comprehension as to the effect of policy and exchange rates is like 180 degrees opposite the reality. So factor that in when you're trading Forex. You got to give time for, you know, the crowd, the herd, to do their thing. You can't always just step right in there saying, oh, I know what's going to happen. I fall victim to that quite often, unfortunately. I have to train myself to hold off a little bit. Patience, right? All right, that's your answer. Bye-bye.